Well, I'm going to go ahead and get this party started. Cory is here. He's with Commerce Journey and Post Status, and he's got a full portfolio of brands that are amazing for this specific subject matter, because we are talking about membership sites, and Cory is the master of memberships. So, with no further ado, I am going to let Cory take the stage and talk about the 5 things that he has learned the most about with membership sites.
You bet. Thanks, Sandy, and thanks, Courtney, for having me. And welcome, Courtney, to GoDaddy. That's it's awesome to see such a GoDaddy collecting such an awesome team.
Jumping in with both feet this week, but thank you very much.
No kidding. Well, I think I'm probably going to give Sandy a heart attack. So I was on the way, I landed in Denver like an hour ago. Thought, I've got some buffer, and just got to my hotel. So Sandy, I'm sorry for probably giving you another heart attack. Well, thanks everybody for being here. And it looks like some familiar names in the chat. Looking forward to talking with you. So when I thought about the subject that Sandy talked about, monetizing memberships, I've got a collection of them. And I was thinking actually earlier this morning that I think every project I have, and I do have multiple projects, has membership or some kind of community aspect attached to it. So if you're not familiar with what I do, I have a community called poststatus.com. It's a WordPress, it's a community of WordPress entrepreneurs and developers. I became an owner with that. Now I'm 100% owner of that, bought out my partner, Brian, who started it. And then I've got Digital Marketing Kitchen, which is about a year and 4 months off the ground. And let's see, what else do I have? Now I'm blanking, but community has always been baked into everything I've done. So I started a company also in 2008 called iThemes, grew it, multi-million-dollar company. It was acquired by Liquid Web in 2018, and I left in 2019. But baked into our 10-plus year journey at iThemes was this notion of community, which I think is really the undergirding of what a membership site is. Okay, so as I was thinking about all my different projects and what I've been involved in, some of this is like today learning. I'm in the middle of this. This is my experiment. This is what I've learned. This is my experiment that I'm working on next. But the first thing that I thought about is the fact that always be building audience. To get people into your membership group, this is, ones and twos here. You have to have an audience. When I left iThemes in 2019, I had 300 people on an email list. I left a company that had hundreds of thousands of emails I had to help build up over the time with brand and audience and customers and all that. And then basically started not from scratch. I definitely didn't start from scratch, but far, far, far below that. Like I said, 300 people or so on my personal blog, personal websites, email list. And I had Twitter following, all that kind of stuff. But it underscored for me again that you need a captive audience to sell to. And I know that's probably basics and Captain Obvious here, but there's one part that is building an audience, continually building an audience. And the next is converting them to members. And that flow is how, those are the basic things that I think about with all of my membership groups is how do we get new people into the audience to know, like, and trust us to then become members. But the fact that you should be always building an audience is the marketing pipeline for everything you do. I do it a number of different ways, but my key strategy for everything I do is email newsletters, getting people onto my email list and sending them regular, consistent, practical, valuable content to that list. I think that is the way to continue to push people to your email list and then get them to return back. Email is still the dominant marketing way to build membership websites. But I build that audience in different ways. I want to nuance this little first thing about monetizing websites, always be building audience, is, a lot of people do that through podcast. I was just talking to Brad Sunard from Spin Up WP and Delicious Brains, and he was talking about he had a podcast at some point, going to fire that back up. But from the beginning, their company built an audience of developers, WordPress developers particularly, but they've used all kinds of things from podcasts, and that's pretty hot right now, to content. They've got an amazing blog on their site that they continue to build people in. Another thing that I always use as part of my fabric is events. I'll share that a little bit down about my third point here, but events are great ways to build audience and always be building audience. Find something that is attractive enough and put it behind an email newsletter, practical, valuable content, put it behind a newsletter. And then I'll tell you, I don't do this well, so I had to hire people to help me to do it, but sending that email consistently at least every 2 weeks to our prospects and to our customers, so that obviously they get events and what's going on in your membership. But always be building audience. I wish, even now, this is good for me to reaffirm for my own self, if I was looking in the mirror, is that to double down on my efforts to be building my email lists, particularly in the building the audience thing. But I think that's the forever job of a membership site owner, is to be building audience. Always be thinking about that flow into your membership. Second is, I subscribe to the belief of don't build it and they'll come. In fact, the times I've done it, so this is my number 2, don't subscribe to the theory of build it and they'll come. For instance, I'll give you an example in just a second, but the counter to that, don't just build it, spend 6 months building something. My mantra is build it as they come. Build it as they come. So for Digital Marketing Kitchen, one of the things I think pushed us back was we had decided to do courses, to build a course before we launched it. And so that took us 6+ months to get everything dialed in. Now, it's a great cornerstone to what we're doing at Digital Marketing Kitchen. However, we spent 6 months that we could have been out there talking about what we're doing. And if we had started with a very minimal product, and I'll talk about that in a second. Actually, no, under this, we had started with like a micro course, or even doing webinar events on training on different things that we were eventually going to bake into the model anyway, we could have been building our snowball, so to speak, months earlier than waiting for a course to launch. And in fact, we launched that with an event, which is my next thing that I'll talk about. We launched it with an event, and that went really, really well. But build it as they come. Don't build it and then they'll come. I think too many of us get trapped in, me included, perfectionism, and then thinking we have to build everything under the sun in order to do that, like release and feel good about, here's the product, my membership product. And I don't think that's the case. I'm a fan of just getting started where you are right now and building your snowball over time. The snowball obviously being momentum in your business and recurring revenue, memberships, people buying memberships and all that, but build it as they come. Mentioned the way I look at this now when I start or think about new membership sites is not building building Rome, but building a smaller piece of that, like through particularly in one of my projects, the mental health project, is micro courses. And actually, we're gonna start with a half-day workshop as the start to what we want to eventually become like $100 a month premium community for therapists trying to build their private practices. And so we're going to start with micro content. I think too many times in our heads, we bloat it. This is talking to me right here. We bloat it. And that's great for big vision thing. Where do we want to go? The big summit? Think about that. But then we need to right size it down to what's the first thing we can start the snowball, building the snowball, and we can do. And I think the thing I've been focused on is these little half-day events and webinars, one-off webinars, even to build audience, which is what we do with Commerce Journey. And then micro courses, something that we could sell for $10, $20. That's what I'm working on with this project right now. Okay, so number one is always be building your audience, and that really comes down to email list. Number two is don't build it and they'll come, the Field of Dreams model. Build it as they come. Unless you have been building audience, which if you have, I'm going to bow to you and say, awesome. If you've been building audience, you have a great audience to sell your membership site to. That is so fantastic. And now third, events, summits, boot camps, workshops are great for building audience and monetizing your membership. Summits, in fact, I just interviewed for Post Status Nathan Wrigley and his counterpart Anshin, who do summits, and she actually does helps people build a summit in a day kind of thing. She's got a service that she offers for that, and we were talking about that. And I've long been I don't like in-person events, honestly. I don't like doing them for sure, planning them logistically, all that kind of stuff. I leave that to other people. I love the online side of it. But, and then the benefit of having a virtual event or summit or workshop or boot camp is that it's all online. You don't have to get on a flight like I just did to go to this conference in Denver tomorrow. I get to stay in my home with my family and sleep in my own bed at night. But I'll tell you, events, summits, boot camps, workshops, some variation of that, half day, full day, 4-day. I've done all of them. At iThemes, we had a training membership that we did for 10 plus years, still going on. Awesome. It's called iThemes Training. And we would do 3 and 4-day boot camps at least twice a year there. And I'll tell you, one of the compelling reasons to do this for your membership is it builds buzz. We humans, think about it, even myself, I need something to look forward to. And an event is like this special thing. It's like when, when I was a kid and we used to watch the space shuttles launching, it was this cool thing. Couldn't wait for the next one. But in between those launches, I might have forgot about NASA and the space shuttle program. Launches are so powerful. One, they build your audience. We built audience with Digital Marketing Kitchen and others through these big free summit type events. And then at the end of that event, they're awesome because you can offer a great deal on your annual membership. This is what I've been doing, and it's worked fairly well. Not your monthly. I mean, monthly's cool, but I'd rather get somebody into an annual membership where I know all year long they're going to be coming, or it's not a one and done thing. And it's a great way to get some cash. With Digital Marketing Kitchen and others, we've done that specifically through events. Like I mentioned, DMK was launched in January 2020, and part of a 3-day SEO boot camp that Rebecca, my partner, was doing. And that was awesome. That was a high five moment at the end of that, because she had hundreds of people in the live boot camp. And then we had those people, actually almost 1,000 people, I think. And so we had those people as a captive audience to say, you like what you heard here? This is what Rebecca and Cory are going to be doing at the kitchen. And that was a great sales day. And every time we've done an event like that, it's turned out well for us. 1, to build audience, and 2, to make an offer to convert people to your membership. So those things work great. I'm a big fan of webinars because here's one of the compelling reasons I love webinars. If you say, Cory, do a course or write a blog post, I will often agonize about it. And procrastinate and bump right up to the deadline. But if I have something like this that I have to be here for, it's a deadline with urgency. I have to show up. I can't be perfect. I have to show up, share some good things. And I love webinars because there's also another component to this when you're talking about events and summits and workshops. I have started, and I've ran hundreds of webinars in the last 2 years and even more over 10 years. But one thing we're doing is great for data. So part of my mental health startup, we're doing webinar events, training for therapists and things like that. It's mostly free to build our audience, to get people engaged, to make offers, to share good things, help them make their lives better and their practices better. But in the registration form, we're actually using Gravity Forms, and we found an add-on where it'll sync with Zoom webinars, which is what we use and really love. I wouldn't say love. I'd say we really, really like it. But there's a third field. You have to have name, email, And those are great. We want that. And we want those put onto an email newsletter list, which is why we use Gravity Forms and the MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, in our case, add-on to get those straight onto the list. And then we put a third field that has been awesome. It's great for content generation. It's great to see expectations, what people are looking for. We simply ask, what are you hoping to learn? And it's not a required field, but I'll tell you 50% or more typically put what they're hoping to learn from that. And you just scan through some of the registrations and some of those fields, and it's like, there's our content for the next 6 months, or there's our next webinar, or, oh, we need to make sure and hit this during the webinar. So there's one way to use events, summits, boot camps, Zoom webinars. I really like the product. You can sign up for month to month. We use about 100-seat webinar, and then when we have this, we get bigger crowds, we scale up to 500. The little hack is, I think if you go month to month and then you cancel, they may offer you a little bump. Be sure to never get out of that grandfathered price, by the way, because they will try to sneak out of that grandfathered in price as they've done with me. Okay, so I've talked about always be building your audience, and that primarily goes down to your email list. And you're sending practical, regular, consistent, awesome emails at least once or twice a month. Second, build as they come. Don't build it so that they then will come. Summits and events are awesome. Number 4 is the highlight is the recurring revenue. Number 4 here is the holy grail of any business: subscription revenue, mailbox money, that kind of thing. And one of the keys to that recurring revenue is what's in it for them. Do they have, and when I look at this, I think about the recurring problems people have. If it's a one and done, that's cool. That's a course. What are the recurring problems that equal potential for recurring revenue? What are the recurring problems our audience has? So if I give an example, for instance, at Digital Marketing Kitchen, one is that SEO changes every day, every week almost, it feels like that at least. And at Digital Marketing Kitchen, we have every Wednesday for 1 hour, we do 2 office hour Q&A open format. We have a training the second week, Wednesday. And then on the 4th, in fact, starts right after this, on the 4th Wednesday of the month, we have content coaching. Now, in all of those, it's basically an open mic Q&A if anybody has questions, particularly on the office hours. But I'll tell you that the problems and challenges people present in those are the things I'm working on right now. And those recurring problems, which is it's harder than heck to keep up with SEO and changes like that. So that's one way we connect back to recurring revenue. Is the recurring problem is algorithm changes. A lot of these freelancers and agencies don't have time to keep up with all that. They come to Rebecca, they come to Digital Marketing Kitchen for that. Okay, so and a part of what I try to work toward in everything I do that has a membership site component and a community component, which is everything I do, that we're seeking to learn and empathize and understand those recurring problems, get in the shoes. So with Post Status right now, as I just took it over 100% in the last week or two, is to get embedded in the mindset of who I was for 10 plus years, which is a WordPress software entrepreneur. We have 2 kind of buckets of people in Post Status. One is founders, and I should say bulk of the people we have in Post Status are entrepreneurs, but they shake out in 2 different broad categories. One is they have a product company in WordPress, or 2, they have an agency, and there are some that do both. So I don't know the freelance agency side. I've done that several times in my career, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that. I can talk business all day, but for our product people, is getting in the mindset of what they need, what they're thinking about, why they come. And that's all about data and empathizing, trying to get to the recurring problems that we can solve with other products or other ways to help them to be that glue. For us, it's Slack is very, very active. It's like the Rolodex of WordPress. So if you want to get a hold of somebody, that's where a lot of the conversations with mergers and acquisitions have started in our Post Status Slack in the DMs. And then the other is the newsletter we send every week that we curate WordPress news. And it's the Too Long Didn't Read version of WordPress news for the busy WordPress founder. I'm always thinking with those hats in mind. I try to put on the hat of WordPress product founder and think, okay, what can we do to get ahead? So it formulates the questions we ask, what things we include in our newsletter, and the conversations we try to curate on post ads. Again, recurring problems, back to recurring revenue. How can we just kind of continually anticipate for them those problems and get ahead for it? But I believe the key to recurring revenue is that empathy, knowing your member better than anyone else. And then the fifth is my favorite. This is maybe hard to quantify to a return on investment, like a calculation that I could just say they clicked from an ad and they bought. Okay. So I've talked about always be building your audience, specifically an email list. 2, build as they come. Don't build up. Try to get your momentum, your snowball going as fast as possible, even if that's doing public and free content. 3rd is look at events, summits, boot camps, workshops to build your audience and convert into members. The 3rd is find and solve recurring problems for your people. That equals recurring revenue and commitment and long-term stay power. And then finally, my favorite is, I love talking about membership sites because it's all about belonging to me. It's all about community. It's about your tribe, the people, the group of people you belong to. Post Status was that for me for a number of years. I was at iThemes, I was a sponsor and promoter of Post Status, and because it was my tribe of people. So there's an event in WordPress called Pressanomics, and everybody, all the business people of WordPress would go to that. And that was my favorite event of the year because that's where all my friends were. Post Status is that in between. And so when we talk about transaction to transformation, that's what I'm talking about here. Transaction is I'm just trying to get a sale. Now, I've talked a lot about conversions, but that's great. We need to get the transactions. But everything I do baked in is belonging and transformation. Like I want to be about the hopes, dreams, and aspirations and goals of our members at Digital Marketing Kitchen or Post Status or Business Value Academy is another one I have. I want to be about their goals, and I try to ask and learn and sense what those aspirations are and get ahead of it. But all along the way, I want people to feel like when they come for any event, they belong to the kitchen, or they belong to Post Status or Business Value Academy, or in my previous days at iThemes. And we wanted people to really feel belonging. That is a powerful, it's not a tool. It's a value in the world that we are honestly have been lacking even before pandemic hit. And so, you've heard this a lot, that people come in membership sites. It's not unique to me, this quote, somebody else's. They come for content, they stay for community. This is the upper level when you hit high gear. They stay for belonging. There's a great book and it talks about Lady Gaga, and it's called Monster Loyalty, I believe. I'll get it for you in just a second. But it talks about, she does such an amazing job. I'm a huge Lady Gaga fan. I geek out with Lady Gaga. Monster Loyalty by Jackie Huba, Huba. Incredible book. But it hits on this belonging in your tribe. And she talks about Lady Gaga will say little monsters or something like that from the crowd. Anytime you can help people self-identify and identify with a bigger group, you're winning. Specifically with community, specifically with membership sites. So at Post Status, we're trying to change some of the things to say, like, this is the place where the business, the WordPress pros belong. The people that make their living with WordPress, that do the business of WordPress every day, this is where you belong. This is your tribe. And we want that circle to be around this group where they go, yeah, I'm a part of the Post Status club or tribe or whatever. I think the upper level, when you get to this, is to find a name like Lady Gaga does with Little Monsters. I'm part of the Little Monsters. Even if somebody doesn't say it, if they feel it, that's huge. And the big versions of this for belonging is the big brands. Like we've seen people that have gotten tattoos of WordPress on their arms, John. We see in our popular culture, the Harley the Harley hogs always, the Harley Davidson motorcycle riders always stick out to me because my granddad had a motorcycle dealership and actually had Harleys back in the 80s before they became real popular. But when that's that aspirational identity is what some of the marketers call it, where you can show them, I want to belong in this place and that I want to identify of that. So I'm wearing one of my startups thing. I'm a t-shirt geek. It's not about t-shirts. It's about belonging, but everything I do, I kind of this connection, because when you get people to wear your brands like Harley and Apple and whoever else does, that's the upper level where they're like, you know, the Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett people, the parrot heads. That's another great example of this. But when that's a result of helping people find identity and belonging, powerful keys to just being human that we can tap into, lean into, and be a part of the solution as part of business. So those are the ways, and people will talk about you when they're like, I feel like I'm heard. I feel like I belong here. This is my crew, you know, those type of things. And making that membership experience when they come through onboarding, we've got some work to do at Postess, but like making it feel like you just got the golden ticket, if you remember from Willy Wonka, like this special thing. Onboarding is something I haven't done a great job at, but we want this magical transformation once they become a member to go, you've arrived, you're here, this is where you're going, people pulling you into conversation and all that kind of stuff. At Digital Marketing Kitchen, Rebecca's known some of our members for a long time, and they show up every week with us and they become deeply personal, and you never underestimate the power of calling somebody by their first name. That right there, remembering somebody's name, calling it out, even if you're on a webinar like this. I see my friend Brandon's here. Hi, Brandon. It's good to see your avatar in the chat. Never underestimate the power of being human to another human, and simply by calling them by their first name. That's part of that belonging, tribe, transaction to transformation. And in this aspirational identity, we try to group in our membership sites. Okay, those are my big takeaways. I'll give you another book that you got to look at if you're building recurring revenue with your membership sites. And I hope you are thinking, if you don't have recurring revenue in your business, you're thinking about it. And it's called Subscribed. And I'll get the author in just a second. But that's a transformational book for your mindset if you're doing membership sites and building recurring revenue into your business. And I'll probably think of more, but that's what I got for today. If you have questions, I'm gonna look here in the chat. Yeah, Brandon, tell John I brought him up again.
Is that book Subscribed the national bestseller Tian Zhao?
That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna drop a link.
Okay, that's your homework for everybody. If you haven't read this, go get it. It is a great way. If anything, it should change your mindset about the marketing you do for your recurring revenue business, obviously your membership site. It's something I'm working with my wife, Lindsay, on at Content Journey. She doesn't have a membership site, but she sells subscription content marketing packages. And so the philosophical mindset of how that builds and stacks recurring revenue is fantastic. This book captures it. So it's really put on the plate. First quarter of the year, when you're getting something going, if you get that snowball going as big and bold as you can, the better it's going to make for you down the road.
Well, thank you so much, Cory. And let's see, Brandon said, good stuff. I remember a talk you gave back in Dallas at WordCamp called Press Publish. I'm wondering, what small steps do you take to start a new membership site, given you want to build it as people come?
The first site, unless you have your content and all that in play, is, I think, just doing something like a podcast and building your email to that. I would just first start with building that audience. And we do that through consistent publishing of content. Whether that's a webinar, I told you why I love webinars, an ebook, a podcast, something where I think of it like ringing the bell. you have to ring the bell enough times for someone to hear it. And those common ad type, how many times does it take for someone to remember a brand name or an ad or something? 7, 10, whatever it is. We just know it's a lot. And so start using content in some way that fits you. Webinars fit me. Because I can break them down. 1, I get a transcript. 2, I get an MP3 to go into a podcast feed. 3, I get a YouTube video to put on YouTube and build SEO over there. But whatever that content type that comes naturally to you, start there. If you have time to build audience, start with the things that you're most interested in and passionate about that you could see doing 2 to 3 years from now. If you're ready to start monetizing, take what you think you want to do, the master class, and that big vision, and then squash it down, laser it to one thing you can deliver in 1 week, and offer that for $10 or $20 or something like that, appropriate to your audience, of course. So there's 2 thoughts. One is just start creating the content around your interest and passion and where the people you want to serve that you'll be doing 2 to 3 years from now. And the second is the way I think about this. In fact, I'm doing a cohort, 4-week cohort, or it's either going to be a 4-week cohort or a half-day workshop for our mental health counselors to help kickstart the marketing for their practice. That's one day. At the end, I'm going to be helping customers, clients, members, and then help them meet each other, help them make progress. I'm going to get recordings because the first 10, 15 minutes of each session is going to be recorded. So now I have my mini course after my first workshop, after my first half-day workshop. So think micro with your first products. And the way I put this down, I didn't put it in here, but this is the way I would have done Digital Marketing Kitchen and some others. Micro content, whether that's 1-hour webinar, 2-hour webinar. Think about the wpsessions.com library there, 2 hours. Take whatever that is, and then, okay, that becomes a $10. Can you break that up? Can you redo it and make it into a little $10, $20 micro course, and then start stacking micro courses together? Or eventually somebody's going to say, just like they did with me in 2008 when I was releasing themes, do you have a bundle? Do you have a developer pack? Do you have the all-you-can-eat vault, kind of thing? That's the way if I could scale back time, I would redo how we launched Digital Marketing Kitchen. Laser topics, build our library, and eventually when we get all that, you got this library of vaults. Now, our good friend Troy Dean at WP Elevation gave me some great advice. He goes, he's got all of this massive course library for freelancers and agencies, right? The live events that they do, and I love my live events because you got to show up and you get data and interaction, just like seeing Sandy's face and nods. But at the end of that, you get something that you can sell. So I think I digress on that big question. But great question, Brandon. I hope that helps. And just stacking that library up, and then eventually you have something that, raise prices. And most of us, here's the thing I forget too often. When I was talking to Troy a couple of weeks ago, asking for some advice for my mental health, my therapist's marketing membership, I forgot that what I'm seeing today is version 10.5 of what started out, and it's part of his story he shares with WP Elevation as, just like software, we just build it over time and iterate on it. Yes. So like Brandon, so for instance, you say it allows for you to get a sense of the need for your content. Absolutely. So we have all these webinars. We can go back through Zoom and see which one were registered, had the highest registrations. I actually do webinars for a client, one of our treatment center clients at Content Journey. And we can go over and see which ones had the most interest. We can see all those diagnostics. But now because we've been doing that third form, what are you hoping to learn? We can go back and really see we're hitting on something. So yeah, absolutely. Doing the live webinars is a great way to gauge that. I'm just a huge fan of it because you can't be a perfectionist. Okay. Sandy, shut me up.
So we did get one question way further up, and that was some of the links to some of your properties. So I put Post Status in the chat at one point. I put Commerce Journey in the chat at one point. What are some of the other membership sites that you run, or membership style things? Thank you. Yeah, just throw those in the chat. Digital Marketing Kitchen is one.
Business Value Academy. I would show you how many people we have here. 17. Okay. I see a lot of WordPress people, friends in here. My mental health startup, Brandon, you're going to laugh. So you too, Sandy, but is, I'll put that right here, allcounselors.com. That's where the well world comes from. So Brandon, you're going to laugh, and Sandy, you too, because this is like rolling back my career in WordPress about 10 years. We're doing our beachhead product is websites for therapists. The whole mental health industry, we've learned about our audience. They're not me. I happen to live with a therapist, but I'm not a clinician. They do have a lot of characteristics of freelancers in WordPress that I've served for 10 years. They are 10 years behind in technology and marketing, and rightfully so. Before COVID, they spent their time in analog, knee to knee, as they call it, sharing the same air. Well, that COVID kind of sped some things up in a good way, I think, in the industry. Telehealth, they still use the words telehealth, by the way. That tells you how dated the industry is. So this is our beachhead product, and when I talk about the cohort we're outlining yesterday to do, that's going to be offered as a bonus to our first clients.
Nice. Yeah, well, I do know that you are one of the people that I go to whenever I have any questions about membership sites and recurring revenue and things like that, because when it comes to discussing those sides of business, that's definitely something I know that we could talk about all day. And so it's really nice to see some of the industries catching up with their time. I do agree. Brandon is married to an educator, and so that's another industry that is significantly behind the times, and anything we can do as a collective to help counselors and help educators and help those types of individuals who, their full goal is something else entirely. So helping bring them into the technology to help ease their burden and ease their load is always a good path to take. So education's near and dear to both Courtney and I's heart. So we definitely discuss it a lot in meetings. So, what is the biggest takeaway that you would leave people with when it comes to starting a membership site? Like, if you had to take just one takeaway that they don't forget, what would that key piece be?
It'd be the first one I gave, which is building an audience. Give you an example. It's not a membership site, but I'm a partner. It's not a membership site, but it's another one of my projects. The VitaBars.com. It's shampoo and conditioner bars. When Anna, who's been the founder, who's been a longtime friend of ours, came to me almost 2 years ago and was asking some advice about what she was doing. She goes, "Yeah, I've got about 40,000 people that follow me on Instagram." And I was like, "What?" Because when you have an audience, a captive audience, and you can just look at her wall and you're like, this is engaged, hundreds of comments, her going back and forth. She's a regular poster. And then an audience with a need, which is curly hair. I said, "Anna, you've got great problems." Because you don't have a bad problem, which is nobody to sell it to. Now, there's all kinds of marketers out there who tell you how to do it without a list and all this stuff. I'll tell you, it's a heck of a lot easier to do it with a list. Like a snowball that was already going in Post Status is easier to keep going than something like Business Value Academy that we're trying to get off the ground, or some of these others. So the one takeaway is do that audience building now. Like if it's your side project, side gig, whatever you call it, like be focused on building as good of a good and big audience.
For sure. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Cory, for being here. I know that you have another conference to prep for. You're not even at home right now. I'd appreciate your time when you're on the road. as I'm sure everybody else does as well. I do want to make one quick plug. And if you go to events.godaddy.com, tomorrow, we will have at 1 p.m. Eastern a .tech domain and code.org meetup/webinar. It's all about increasing access to computer science, and there's actually a fundraiser going on as well when you buy a .tech domain. So definitely something to check out. Always looking, again, to increase the education space and help others in the education space. So that's something that we're doing here. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming to another edition of the GoDaddy Pro Meetup, and we will see you all next week.